जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरावनचारी यमुना तीरावनचारी ओ जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी ओ जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे ओ हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे ओ हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय प्रभुपादा प्रभुपादा श्रीला प्रभुपादा ओ जय प्रभुपादा श्रीला प्रभुपादा ओ निताय गौरा हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल ओ निताय गौरा हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र सत श्री श्रीमद एसी भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र सत श्री श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrindaki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Brajabhumi Vrindavan Dham Ki पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की गंगा मैया यमुना मैया की तुलसी देवी भक्ति देवी की सामवेद भक्त वृंद की निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे all glories to assembled devotees all glories to assembled devotees all glories to assembled devotees all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai मां विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमती भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिनि नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय So we'll all say the prayers together. Narayana namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Naranarayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadev, the author. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhagavati naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, by rendering the service of pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Hare Krishna. So we are going to continue our reading today from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, chapter number 23, which is titled Devahuti's Lamentation. And today we shall be covering verses 36 all the way to 48, and we shall be going a little bit more deeper in text number 43. Hare Krishna. So before we start, I have some pop quiz for all of you. Make sure that you all are paying attention in all the Bhagavatam classes. So first question is, the Manus were created from which part of Brahma's body? Good try. Close. The mind. And the Manus, they promote welfare activities of the universe. Who is our current Manu right now? Close. Vaivashvata Manu. And that is in the Bhagavad Gita. The chapter we are reading right now in Canto 3, we talk about one Manu. Which Manu is that? Swambhuva Manu, yes. So, how many Manus are there in Brahma's one day? 14, correct. And so, Swambhuva Manu, and what is the duration of one Manu's lifetime? 71 yugas. And a yuga is four. Uh, one yuga is 4, and 71 of those yugas is the duration of one manu. So 14 such manus make up one day of Brahma. Okay. So we're talking about Swayambhuva Manu. He appeared in the age of Varaha, the boar incarnation. He had 2 sons. Anybody remembers the 2 sons? Uttanapad and Priyavrata. Priyavrata and Uttanapad. Okay. And he had a daughter too, who we are reading about. Yes, their daughter was Devahuti. So Priyavrata, Uttanapad, and Devahuti. So we're talking about Devahuti in Canto 3. In Canto 4, we're going to cover the entire lineage of Uttanapad. So Dhruv Maharaj, and all his lineage. And in Canto 5, we're going to talk about Priyavrata and his lineage. So Devahuti, we read from chapters 22 and 21 and 22 that she was the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. And Swayambhuva Manu, he wanted to get his daughter married. And we have Kardama Muni. Kardama Muni is the son of Brahma, right? Brahma. And he was at the banks of which river? Saraswati. It was on the banks of Saraswati. And there is a lake just by the banks of Saraswati called Bindu Sarovar. And Bindu Sarovar is a very, very beautiful lake. There's a beautiful description in the Bhagavatam. You have water lilies, you have cuckoo birds, you have peacocks. Like, it's so beautiful. And he was meditating there for hundreds of years. And after he was meditating, he came face to face with Narayan. So Narayan shows up at Bindu Sarovar on the shoulders of Garuda. And as soon as Kardama Muni saw Narayan, immediately he paid his obeisances and he had beautiful prayers. And at that time, he was liberated, right? He was liberated. Krishna came and he gave his own appearance. But he had a desire. Anybody knows what his desire was? That he wanted to get married. Right? Like, here he's meditating for thousands of years. He's got, appearance of Krishna, and he still had a desire. His desire was that he wanted to get married. But our acharyas explain why he had that desire. Because his father Brahma had given him an instruction that, my dear son, I would like for you to create, I want to have more jivas here. So this is a very important instruction, that even though, we might have our own plan, however, there is a plan by providence, and we have to surrender to that plan, surrender to Krishna's plan. And when you surrender to Krishna's plan, then Krishna is going to take care of us. So Kardama Muni, he had a desire, he expressed that desire, and Krishna, who is all-knowing, tells Kardama that, my dear son, I already know what is your desire, and I've already made all the plans, so don't worry. From today, day after tomorrow from today, Swayambhuva Manu, along with his wife and their pretty daughter, is going to come here to Bindu Sarovar, and they are going to, ask for your hand in marriage to their daughter. So this was spoken by Narayan, and then Narayan left with Garuda. And as Garuda was flying back, he was flapping his wings, and the flapping of the wings, we could hear the Vedas, right? As Garuda is flapping his wings, we hear all the Vedas. So after um, s- after Kardama Muni heard this, he again, was meditating, and Swambhuva Manu, along with his wife and daughter, came to Bindu Sarovar, and they asked for their hand, for his hand, and beautiful description, earlier in this chapter on how the father asks for the, proposes that, would like my daughter to get married to you. And then Kardama Muni accepted, right? And he glorified Swambhuva Manu. He explained what is the purpose of a Kshatriya, what is the purpose of a Brahmana, and why, it's important that both of them work close together. Now, Devahuti, she was a very, very beautiful princess. And Swambhuva Manu had taken care of his daughter really well. And Devahuti was a very, very chaste wife. So after they got married, Devahuti took care of Kardama Muni so much so that she actually forgot to take care of herself, right? She was, and the description is that when she was taking care so much, she forgot to take care of her appearance, right? And she became a little emaciated. So let's go back a little bit. Sorry, just checking this. So it's from verses 8 in the same chapter, from verses 8 all the way till here. We understand how Devahuti, um, she was a little bit run down, right, because of the service. But then she expressed to her husband that we had decided that we would actually progenate, right, and we would have kids because this was the desire by Lord Brahma. So what does Kardama do? Because of his yogic power, he immediately asked Devahuti that why don't you take a dip in Bindu Sarovar, in the lake Bindu Sarovar. And immediately, as soon as she took a dip in the Bindu Sarovar, whom does she see? She's, she sees so many maidservants. There was a house within the lake. There were beautiful maidservants, and immediately they all took care of her, gave her wonderful clothes, dressed her up with, they say, like, they washed her with oil and bathed her. And then when she came back up, she was as pretty as when she came the first time to see Kardama Muni. So as soon as Kardama Muni saw, his wife, he was very, very pleased. So that is the context of, where we are in this chapter. So we're going to now read from text number 36. So 34 was, when she thought of her great husband, the best of the sages, Kardama Muni, who was very dear to her, she, along with all the maidservants, at once appeared where he was. So she came back up. 35, she was amazed to find herself surrounded by 1,000 maids in the presence of her husband and to witness his yogic power. Text 36, 37. Would somebody like to read?
The sage could see the deputy has washed herself clean and was shining forth as though no longer his former wife. She has regained her own original beauty as the daughter of prince, dressed in excellent robe, her charming breast duly graded. She was waited upon by 1,000 Gandharva girls, or destroyer of the enemy. His fondness for her grew, and he placed her on the aerial mansion.
So he immediately created an aerial mansion, right? They had a small cottage. They were living at the lake in a small cottage, but because of his yogic power, he immediately created an aerial mansion. And the description of aerial mansion was such that it was 7 stories high. That aerial mansion was 7 stories high. Okay, text 38.
seemingly attached to his beloved consort while served by the Gandharva girls, the sage did not lose his glory, which was the mastery over his self. In the aerial mansion, Kardama Muni with his consort shone as charmingly as the moon in the midst of the stars in the sky, which causes rows of lilies to open in ponds at night.
So when Devahuti reminded Kardama of his promise to have children, which is one of the great qualities of a chaste woman and a glorious husband, he immediately, you know, took care of her, created an aerial mansion which was 7 stories high, made her body suitable, and made all the arrangements. Okay, text number 38,
In
39, sorry.
In that aerial mansion, he traveled to the pleasure valleys of Mount Meru, which were rendered all the more beautiful by cool, gentle, fragrant breezes that stimulated passion. In these valleys, the treasure of the gods, Kuvera, surrounded by beautiful women and praised by the Siddhas, generally enjoys pleasure. Kardama Muni also, surrounded by the beautiful damsels and his wife, went there and enjoyed for many, many years.
So, so this is a very nice instruction, right, for on how to actually take care of the wife, right? The wife had a desire, and Kardama Muni immediately created a mansion and then took his wife to all these wonderful places. And here it's explained that the treasure of the gods, Kuvera, was also there, right? And the demigods also used to come to these gardens, which were by Mount Meru. So it's explained that each direction has a particular deity. So Kuvera is actually the deity of the north, right? On the east we have Indra. On the southeast we have Agni. In the south we have uh, Yama. And then in the southwest we have Niriti. On the west we have Varuna. And on the northwest, we have Vayu. So all the different directions, we have deities present. And all these demigods, they used to come with their family in these wonderful gardens. And Kardama Muni also took Devahuti to this wonderful garden. Okay, text 40.
Satisfied by his wife, he enjoyed in the aerial mansion not only on Mount Meru, but in different gardens known as Vishambhak, Surashana, Nandana, Pushpabhadrak, and Chaitraratya, and by the Manasa Sarovara lake.
Text 41.
He traveled in that way through the various planets as the air passes uncontrolled in every direction, coursing through the air in that great and splendid aerial mansion, which could fly at his will. He surpassed even the demigods.
Yeah, so this is an important point that he could fly wherever he could, wherever he wanted to, and he even surpassed the demigods. So Srila Prabhupada here in this purport explains that Krishna has created different universes and different planetary systems, and there are different bodies which live on each planetary system. The bodies from one planetary system cannot go to another planetary system, right? That is the conditioning. Same with the demigods. The demigods can't move freely from one place to another place with their own free will. However, Kardama Muni, with his yogic power, he was able to travel wherever he wanted, right? So this is the power, this is the yogic power. This is the power of yoga, right? And what we see these days is just a little bit, the postures which they do in the yogic process. But the yogis earlier they were so powerful that they could actually travel any part of the planetary system. Okay, text 42.
What is difficult to achieve for determined men who have taken refuge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's lotus feet. His feet are the source of sacred rivers like the Ganges, which put an end to the dangers of mundane life.
Isn't that true? Like if somebody surrendered to the lotus feet of Krishna, what is difficult for them to achieve? Do you have any examples of that, of any devotees who have surrendered to the lotus feet of Krishna, and they've done difficult things which we cannot imagine? Srila Prabhupada, thank you. Srila Prabhupada, right? It is nothing short of a miracle. What he accomplished, and he created a whole home for everyone in this world, right? At the age of 70, he traveled, came all the way to the US to save all of us. So thank you, Prabhu. Any other examples? Draupadi. Krishna, yeah. Right? As soon as Draupadi surrendered, Krishna provided everything. Right? And that was a miracle too. So this is very important, right? So what is difficult to achieve for determined men who have taken the refuge of Krishna's lotus feet? And the context is that Kardama Muni had surrendered onto the lotus feet of Krishna. And here, this yogi, the saint who was living at Bindu Sarovar in a small cottage, now had an aerial mansion which was 7 floors high, and he could fly anywhere in this planetary system, and even surpassing the demigods. Text 43.
After showing his wife the globe of the universe and its different arrangements, full of wonders, the great yogi Kardama Muni returned to his own hermitage.
Okay, text 44.
After coming back to his hermitage, he divided himself into 9 personalities just to give pleasure to Dehuti, daughter of Manu, who was eager for sex life. In that way, he enjoyed with her for many, many years, which passed like just a moment.
So here we see Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that the sexual desire of a woman is a little bit more. So Kardama Muni, in order to please his wife, he divided himself into 9 personalities just to fulfill the desire of his wife. Okay, text 45.
In that aerial mansion, Devahuti, in the company of her handsome husband, situated on an excellent bed that increased her sexual desires, could not realize how much time was passing.
Yeah. So they could not realize how much time was passing, right? And Srila Prabhupada explains that it was so enjoyable for materialist people that when they engage in such activities, they forget how time is passing. Okay, text 46.
While the couple who eagerly longed for sexual pleasure were thus enjoying themselves by virtue of mystic powers, 100 autumns passed like a brief span of time.
100 autumns. 100 autumns passed by. Okay, text 47.
The powerful Kardama Muni was the knower of everyone's heart, and he could grant whatever one desired. Knowing the spiritual soul, he regarded her as half of his body. Dividing himself into 9 forms, he impregnated Devahuti with 9 discharges of semen.
Text 48.
Immediately afterward, on the same day, Devahuti gave birth to 9 female children, all charming in every limb and fragrant with the scent of the red lotus flower.
So on that very day, she had 9 daughters, right? And all these 9 daughters, they are now going to be married to 9 different sages who were all sons of Brahma. Okay, and from them we get more. So now we will go to text 43 again, and we'll go a little deeper into that purport. So I'll say the Sanskrit, and you can all repeat. Preksha yitva bhuvo kolam patyai yavan swasamsthaya Bhava Ascharyam Mahayogi Swashram Maya Navartata Prekshayatva Bhuvo Kolam Patyayavansa Samsthaya Bhava Ashcharyam Mahayogi Swaswaramaya Navartata Prekshayatva Bhuvo Golam Patyayavan Swasamsthaya Bhava Ashcharyam Mahayogi Swashwaramaya Navartata. Somebody like to sing? Prekshayatva Bhuvolkolam Patyayavan Swasamsthaya Bhava Ashcharyam Mahayogi Swashwaramaya Navartata. One more. Okay, don't fight. We'll do two more, no problem. Prekshayatva bhuvo kolam Patyayavan swasamsthaya Bhava Ashcharyam Mahayogi Swashwaramaya Navartata Prekshayatva bhuvo kolam Patyayavan swaswamsthaya Bhava Ashcharyam Mahayogi Swashwaramaya Navartata. Word for word. Prekshayatva. After showing. Bhuvaha. Of the universe. Golam. The globe. Patyai. To his wife. Yavan. As much. Swasamsthaya. With its arrangements. Bahu Ashcharyam. Full of many wonders. Mahayogi. The great yogi Kardama. Swa Ashramaya. To his own hermitage. Navartata. Returned. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. After showing his wife the globe of the universe and its different arrangements, full of many wonders, the great yogi Kardama Muni returned to his own hermitage. All the planets are here described as Gola, round. So planets are round, not flat. They are round. And this is in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the first line of text 43, which says, Preshayatva bhuvo golam. Golam is the globe, round. All the planets are here described as Gola, round. Every planet is round, and every planet is a different shelter, just like islands in the great ocean. Planets are sometimes called Dvipa or Varsha. This earth planet is called Bharatvarsha because it was ruled by King Bharat. Another significant word used in this verse is Bhavya Ashcharyam, many wonderful things. This indicates that the different planets are distributed all over the universe in 8 directions, and each and every one of them is wonderful in itself. Each planet has its particular climatic influences and particular types of inhabitants and is completely equipped with everything, including the beauty of the seasons. In the Brahma Samhita 540, it is stated It is similarly stated, Vibhuti Bhinnam. On each and every planet, there are different opulences. It cannot be expected that one planet is exactly like another. By God's grace, by nature's law, each and every planet is made differently and has different wonderful features. All such wonders were personally experienced by Kardama Muni while he traveled with his wife. Yet, he could return again to his humble hermitage. He showed his princess wife that although he was living in the hermitage, he had the power to go everywhere and do anything by mystic yoga. That is the perfection of yoga. One cannot become a perfect yogi simply by showing some sitting postures, nor by such sitting postures or so called meditation can one become God, as is being advertised. Foolish persons are misled into believing that simply by some caricature of meditation and sitting postures, one can become God within 6 months. Here is the example of a perfect yogi. He could travel all over the universe. Similarly, there is a description of Durvasa Muni who also traveled in space. Actually, the perfect yogi can do that. But even if one can travel all over the universe and show wonderful feats like Kardama Muni, he cannot be compared to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose power and inconceivable energy can never be attained by any conditioned or liberated soul. By the actions of Kardama Muni, we can understand that in spite of his immense mystic power, he remained a devotee of the Lord. That is the real position of every living entity. So here we see lots of different points which Srila Prabhupada is explaining. The first point which Srila Prabhupada explains is that Kardama Muni and Devhuti, as they were traveling, they saw different planets, and each planet was different. It wasn't like Krishna created one planet and then copy pasted, right? And did everything the same. No, there was differences in each planet. Each planetary system was different. Just like here on the Earth planet, right? Everything is so different. We have different seasons, we have different places. Some are cold, some are hot, right? We have mountains, we have beaches. So everything is so different in Krishna's creation. So Kardama Muni and Devahuti, as they were traveling, they saw all these different planetary systems which were different. So that's the first point. As they were seeing all these wonderful places, it wasn't that they were so involved that they did not want to come back, right? Kardama Muni knew that after his vacation, he came back to his hermitage. And that is a sign of a person who is, who's in Krishna consciousness. They know that, their home is actually where they can go back to Krishna's lotus feet. So here, an important point here is Kardama Muni and Devahuti came back. They were able to return to their humble hermitage. So that's also an important point. The next point, which Srila Prabhupada explains, is about the perfection of yoga. Because of the perfection of yoga, he had so much power that he was able to take him and his wife on an aerial mansion all over the universe. So does that mean that because he was liberated and he was a mystic yogi that he was God? No, he's not God, right? However, liberated persons, they are much better than conditioned souls. And the way he was able to become liberated was because of severe austerities and penances. But yet, he always remembered his position, which was that he was an eternal servant of Krishna. So this is another important point. We should remember that Krishna might give us various skills. He might put us in different positions. He might give us different designations. However, We should always remember that we are an eternal servant of Krishna, and we are just serving Krishna in a position. So he was equipped with strong protection. And because he was equipped with strong protection, even though he was interacting with material nature, he was still not deviated, right? He was seeing all these wonderful sights. He was with his wonderful wife. The wonderful wife had so many maidservants, but still he wasn't deviated, even though he was interacting with the material nature. And the reason was because he had his armor, right? He had a strong armor. And this is another instruction which we should take. Every day we also go and interact with the material nature, right? And before we go out into the material nature, Srila Prabhupada has given us the armor which we need to put on, which is chanting of the holy name. When we chant the holy name, we put on our spiritual armor. It helps, it gives us protection that when we go out into the material world and we are interacting with the material nature, we also don't get deviated. We are prepared, right? We are prepared for any unforeseeable action which can happen. So knowledge and action have to be used in conjunction, which here Kartama Muni was able to do so nicely. So some of the points to summarize was that Kardama Muni was a great yogi. He was living in a humble cottage, but he had so much power that he was able to fulfill the desires of his wife. He took her to all these different places, and yet, even though he was interacting with all the material nature, he still was able to come back to his humble hermitage. He also knew that because he had this mystic power, he was not God. He knew his position. He knew he was an eternal spirit soul who is here to serve Krishna. And we also see later on that as soon as he had the 9 daughters, he was ready to leave. He was ready to leave. And then he remembered that, I've performed my duty, I have done my responsibility, and now I have something else which I am asked to do. So this is, these are some learnings we can try to imbibe in our own life by this wonderful passage which we have read about Kardama Muni. So we'll stop here and we'll try to take some reflections or some comments, something which stuck to you, which you can share when you go out of this class. We'll start with Priyanka.
I really like the part where you talked about how the chanting of the holy names, our bhakti, our sadhana, is a sort of armor that you use for the material world. And the story about a very exalted devotee who still had to perform material activities because it is under Krishna's will, right? It kind of gives us an example to look towards whenever we're doing our duties as in the material world right now, and what type of mindset we should have, especially within the realm of marriage and sex. I feel like it's so easy to have that whole thing misconstrued, especially within the age of Kali Yuga when all that is so mundane and disgusting and now, right? But we have a role model basically within that Srimad Bhagavatam has given us to understand how we can lead our lives as a devotee, but also still keep in touch with what our duty is.
Such a wonderful point. Thank you. This shows us that, Srimad Bhagavatam is like our use case. It's like our manual. There's nothing which we are going through which haven't been done by all these great personalities. And that's why Nityam Bhagavata Sevya. Whenever we read the Srimad Bhagavatam, we actually learn, and this is our manual for our life. So thank you for that point. Hare Krishna.
My favorite point that you mentioned was probably, she basically covered it, but how Kardama Muni is so aloof from the material, his material desires, that he was doing it to please his wife. And even though he enjoyed all this for so many hundreds of years, he came back to his cottage to go back into the service of the Lord. And right now in this day and age, it's so hard to comprehend how someone could have all of that material possession and then give it all up just to go back to serve the Lord again. It's not that easy. It's not as easy as it seems. So back then, to have like that power and self-control, and even now, like the only way we can do something like that is through the process of devotional service. We don't have like the capability of like what was in other yugas and things. So I just thought that was really cool to see like how other yugas had so much like austerity, and then how in the age of Kali our austerity is chanting the holy names.
Nice point. Yeah. You know, the point about how Kardama Muni, even though he was liberated, you know, he was so personal, right? Kardama Muni was so personal. He understood that, you know, his wife had a desire, and he ensured that he wants to take care of her needs and her desires. And when he actually went the other way, right, and he was interacting with the material nature, yet he was able to come back. So nice point. Thank you. Prabhu.
I think the last 2 days, what's been sticking with me, at least, and maybe it's just my perspective, so you know, seeing things through my lens. But yesterday, when it describes how Kardama Muni, like the mansion was like instantly created, and even he was surprised by it. And then just hearing, you know, kind of the point they touched on, that after 100 autumns of, you know, traveling, and that he just went back to his hermitage and did that. And I was just been reflecting on how Srila Prabhupada says so many times, Krishna's not a poor man, right? That Krishna can give us anything. So Kardama Muni was surprised because this mansion wasn't his, he didn't create it, right? It ultimately came from Krishna, right? So it surprised him. And so I've just been reflecting on how sometimes I feel, or there may be a perception that there's some lacking. We have a lack of resources or time or energy or money or whatever it is you want to say. But how Krishna can give us more than we can even fathom as possible. Even in the example of this great devotee who was liberated, was surprised by what happened, what Krishna gave him. And so what to speak of us if we can just sincerely serve. And then today I think it kind of added to that he wasn't attached. He had all, Krishna gave him this amazing, you know, resources, the most beautiful wife and all of these things. And he just went back to his hermitage to continue his sadhana, basically, right? And so like that combination of being such a qualified devotee, not being attached, Krishna can give us everything that we need if we have that yeah, anyway, just beautiful little reflection.
Yeah, you know, such beautiful points. It's like everything is coming from Krishna's power. All we have to do is just surrender, and he knows our desires. He is going to try to fulfill them. And at the same time, it did not go to his head. It did not go into Kardama Muni's head. He was able to again come back. So thank you, Vishnu Prabhu.
I mean, I have a lot to say, but
yeah, please
there's
share.
one thing that like struck with me, that because like I'm at the stage with like marriage, but it's that like my thing is that the fact that, you know, his like I'm completely into the understanding of like, you know, you gotta fulfill your wife's desires completely, 100%. I'm a big people pleaser, so like I'll do whatever it takes. But then I'm also like struck like in a dilemma of between like, okay, he was able to ground himself at the end of the day, you know, take himself back to where he is, his position. But what about like, should there be like some sort of grounding with in the process of his partner as well?
Very nice point. Prabhu, very beautiful point. And this is just how the Srimad Bhagavatam is going to go to. So now so Devahuti has the 9 daughters, and then Kardama Muni says, okay, I got to leave. I fulfilled your desires, and now I have a different responsibility. And Devahuti then shares that, you know, she prays and she says that, you know, I wasted all my life. I was here with such a transcendentalist, but I was so stuck to these different desires. So talking about boundaries, right? This is going to come in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then it also explains how Kardama then stays. He stays with Devahuti till Devahuti has a son, who's Krishna himself, who is Kapila Muni. So Kapila Dev comes to instruct Devahuti. And then once Kapila Dev shows up, right, and he's big, then Kardama Muni goes to Kapila Dev and prays that, is it okay if I leave now? And then he says, it is okay. I will take care of Devahuti. And then he leaves. So beautiful, This Srimad Bhagavatam teaches everything, shows us that we have to create boundaries. And then how do we actually go over that? So thank you.
I just want to apologize for making you give away the spoilers.
No, this is good. Yeah, Hare Krishna. This is just a trailer. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
So my question is, if Kardama Muni is like, he doesn't really care about having children and stuff like this, having a wife, if right after he just leaves and he just wants to stay in his samadhi, then why does he do all this in the first place?
So, yeah, I was thinking about the same point, but then I was reflecting, like, did he just have daughters and he left? No, it wasn't like that. Because, first of all, it was an instruction which was given to him. Even though he saw Krishna face to face, he could have gone back home, right? He didn't have to stay in this material world. But he stayed here because he had to fulfill the desire which was from his father, Lord Brahma. So that's why he said that I have to do this. And then we also see that after he completes all this, another spoiler, Brahma actually shows up and he thanks Kardama. Kardama, thank you. Thank you for actually going through this. I'm so pleased. Like, father was so pleased because he actually went through with that instruction. So that is one point. The other point is that everything is so magical here. Devahuti immediately had 9 daughters. It doesn't say how soon they grew up, right? We don't know that point. So I'm contemplating that maybe, they were ready and Kardama Muni was able to leave. Like, he did not just leave her, take care of them himself. So he actually got them married and then left. So basically he took care of the daughters to grow up, handed them over to the sages, and then left. Hope that's okay. Hare Krishna. Prabhu?
Just wanted to comment, Prabhuji, on the last point that we discussed, that unless we have a strong spiritual foundation and maturity, the lines between spirituality and responsibility can, diminish. Like, the responsibility can take over, and we might feel that, we are just fulfilling the responsibility, but unless we have that spiritual maturity, we might get swayed. So.
Yeah, it's so important. Like, we get our spiritual maturity by Sangha. When we are in Sangha, we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing, then we actually start getting that. And that helps us because every time we go out, we have a choice. Each one of us, we have a choice. And at that point, what we choose depends on what we've put into ourselves. So, thank you. Like to share something? Mataji? Okay, Jose, you get the last word. Don't be shy. Okay. All right. Thank you, dear devotees. Wish you all a wonderful Krishna conscious day. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna.